everybody. Welcome back to Checkered Past and Present. On today's episode, we're going to take a look back at this past weekend's races in Martinsville, where, unfortunately, I'm not going to just keep throwing that one of the bus, but there's a lot of complaining still going on, and a lot of the same stuff that me and Brett have been saying for a year now almost, along with the other Denny, Hamlin, pretty much every driver. But before we get started into that, I just want to take a moment to say, keep your thoughts and prayers with the Bonnie family on the all yesterday. People, Terry and Bobby, also their dad Bob yesterday. So keep them in your thoughts and prayers. So moving ahead, Brett, what do you think about Martinsville?
I didn't think much about it. It was your typical short track next gen race. First off, it got off to a rough start. Not to NASCAR's fault or Martinsville's fault or anybody's fault. My Wi-Fi wouldn't let me watch it on my TV, so I missed like the first 30 laps. But other than that, no, down the stretch there into stage one, obviously Larson's car fell off a lot, and then stage two, Joey took those two tires and pretty much dominated the stage. But then he paid the penalty late in the stage, ended up falling back to fifth. And then who ended up winning the stage? Was it Denny? I forget who won the stage. Who won the stage there?
Yeah, it was Denny, I believe.
Yeah, Denny won the stage. And then stage three, you kind of felt like it was going to be the 9 or the 5, or at least I did. And they were running at the front all day. And then Hendrick was running 1, 2, 3 there for a while. And then Willie B short pitted and got it back out front. And was just going to run away with it. It was going to be 1, 2, 3 Hendrick, perfect day with the Ruby Red 40th anniversary schemes. And then Mr. John Hunter Nemechek said, let me burn my brakes up and go into the wall. And so we had that last GWC, which was the only exciting part of the whole day. And Chase Elliott could have dumped his teammate, chose not to. Gave him a little shove in 3 and 4, coming to the white flag. I hadn't seen a whole lot of interesting commentary on it. We had that wreck coming to the white flag. NASCAR chose not to throw a caution. And then pretty much second, third, and fourth started wrestling. That allowed William to get away. And then that was pretty much all she wrote. I mean, it was an extremely boring race. I think we went from what we had to start the year. The first 3 or 4 races were awesome. And then, I mean, really, man, Coda was okay, and then you go to Richmond, and then you go to Martinsville, and we've had the last 2 weeks where really, barring the late race restarts, it really hasn't been anything to talk about. And even with the late race restart at Martinsville, man, it's always going to be just a bull ram, and it wasn't. And I mean, I don't know, it just wasn't entertaining. It just wasn't, unfortunately.
They can't get to each other to hit each other. These cars, if you go back and look at it, NASCAR made it sound like this was going to help the road courses and the short track. The brakes were going to be better. The tires was going to be better because they're bigger. All that's done is make it it ain't easy. Now, let me take that back. It is not easy for these guys to drive these cars. But they have figured out they can take advantage of them giant brakes and tires and not make the mistakes. Brett, you remember these days. We used to have a Martinsville race. There'd be 13 cautions.
Yeah,
guys hitting each other. I mean, and speaking of cautions, that not caution coming to the white flag was a lot worse than the caution that threw for Kyle Busch last week. So here we are about consistency still. Just throwing that out there. And you see I'm wearing this 75 anniversary hat. I love the sport, the history of this sport. They're really starting to bum me out with some of this stuff, with the inconsistency.
I was mad on Sunday after the race. I'm going to be honest. It was really a bunch of things. The 2 biggest being who won the race. Obviously, can't control that. But the other thing just being, man, it was just a bad race. Like I would rather William Byron win 36 races and every race be a good race than Joey Logano win 10, but all 10 of those races be horrible races. That's just how I am as a race fan. I don't watch the race to watch my favorite guys win. Obviously, that is a part of it. But I think racing is a different sport than the bat and ball sports that we watch. Because when I watch baseball, if the Atlanta Braves are playing, I'm watching the Atlanta Braves to win, right? If I'm watching 2 teams I don't care about, I'm wanting to watch a good baseball game. you sit down and watch a race, you obviously have guys that you pull for, but I think as fans, and I guess I can only really speak for me, I want to sit down and watch a good race. If Joey blows a motor on lap 5 and Ty Gibbs, has a tire issue that he can't come back from, and both the RFK cars get knocked out, and Harrison Burton continues to do what he's done for the last 2 years, at that point, I would just want to see a good race. And I think that's what really bums you out is when, and Joey ran well on Sunday, but you don't have any of your guys towards the front, and then it's a bad race. And then that's, as a fan, just not what you want to see. But objectively, removing my favorite drivers from it, just a horrible race. Horrible race.
Larson running good made it salvageable for me.
Yeah.
But, me good enough. Larson wrecked lap 1. I'm still going to sit there for the next 2.5, 3 hours watching that thing. I love racing, and I love the sport of it. And I'm so glad, as bad as Texas is, I'm so glad to be going to a 1.5-mile period. Just because this car has been so much. They made the 1.5 miles better, but they ruined everything else.
They have.
And it's disheartening, and NASCAR will not listen to the drivers. They keep saying it's to cut costs. Well, Brad Keselowski, I'm sure you saw this comes out, that hasn't cut one penny not practicing. All they've done is turned around and sent all that money straight to simulation, trying to make up for not practicing.
Yeah, I loved I loved the segment last week on Down Junior Download where Bubba Pollard was on there, and they were talking about getting in those simulators, and Dale Jr. pretty much said the same thing, like, you can't imitate what it's like being in the car. Bubba Pollard said he felt like he was horrible. Obviously, he ran at Richmond in the Xfinity Series.
Mm-hmm.
He said he felt like he was horrible doing those sim races, and then he goes out, he was P1 on the board in practice. And then they missed it in qualifying, and obviously he went out and he finished 6th in the race. So it's like, as good as the simulation stuff is, and these full rigs are, you cannot imitate it. You cannot imitate what it's like being on the track. And you bring up Brad, bring up Chase Elliott, Larson, Joey. You could go down a list of your veteran guys and your champions of the sport. They've all said the same thing. We have to practice. We have to get back on the track. We have to practice. You have a lot of talent. You have a lot of guys who are really good at what they do. But if they don't get to practice, that is really going to make things hard for them on Sunday. And I agree. Yeah, we got to get back. We got to practice.
And you can see it's taking the advantage from the guys that understand the cars. And Kyle Busch, that's one of his best attributes. Obviously, he's got a talent driving the car, but he's incredible at telling the crew chief what that thing needs. When he could practice on Friday and Saturday, ever since they took that away is when his career kind of took a little bit of a dip.
Yep.
Now, that was a little hot early last year with RCR, but before that, he was 2 years struggling, and then it's been right back to the way it was really the 2 years before. It looks like to me on most weekends, Kyle Busch is dealing with a 15th place car right now, and he's getting something out of it here and there. Now, they had some fast cars the first couple of races, and we'll see if that goes back to the way it was when we get to this 1.5 miles this week. But, and speaking of Kyle Larson, I've heard an interview where Larson says one thing about the dirt racing now, people complain that he races too much. Thing is, he says he gets better at driving, running a dirt car than he does doing that simulator because to him, it doesn't translate. He does the simulator stuff because, the teams request him to help him figure out some setups. He doesn't feel like it helps him unless it's just like an absolute, like the Chicago Street Course where you're literally just learning where the turns are, something like that, But I guess going on from here, we can quit complaining about it. Everybody.
Well, the one thing about the last thing about the simulations is it does help them get to the gears with the 5-gear setups. But other than that, like you said, a new course or something, new track. But other than that, it really doesn't help. But I know you're excited to talk about the finishes.
Well, that's only for the new guys now.
Yeah.
The Joeys and the Kyle, they've learned that. I hope they've learned it by now. Anyway.
Yeah, right.
But speaking of Larson, by the way, I just want to point out second in Indy 500 practice today.
I hope he wins it. I'm not. No, I don't hope he wins. I hope he finishes second. I hope Joseph Newgarden can go back to back. I'm a big fan of Newgarden, Tennessee guy. Obviously runs for Penske in the Indy car. But if Newgarden can't win it, I do hope Kyle Larson wins it because you hope Larson wins? What a shocker! Yeah, I know.
I hope he pulls off the 1,100 mile sweep. I got some.
Dude, that would be awesome. That would be. You gotta wear it when you come to the 600.
You said you was gonna bring it up. We're working on it.
Hey, dude. Side note: when I went to Hendrick, was that like a month ago now? They had a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of that 1100 stuff in there, and me having a brain fart and had been on the day that we bad at all these race shops. I'm like, what is this? And then I see the what is he's running the 17? Is that what number
Mm-hmm.
he's running Indy? And
Yeah.
I saw that on it with the orange on it. I was like, oh, 1100 miles, put two and two together. So yeah, that would be neat. That would be neat to say the least. I think if he could win, obviously it'd be cool for sport of NASCAR to say here's a guy who's never ran any kind of open wheel stuff on asphalt in his life, and he goes in there and wins the Indy 500. I at least hope at the very least he does complete all 1100 miles because he'll be the first one to do it, but the other one to do it didn't do it in my lifetime. So that would be really neat. That
Tony's the
would
only other
be.
one that
Yep,
Tony.
99 I think it was.
Yeah.
No, it was 2000. It was 2000 when he did it. Yeah, he threw up in the car and finished fourth at the 600.
Yeah, he was
So,
struggling by the end of it. One thing about the miles, Larson would be used. Larson's busy this week doing the 2-day test up there. By the way, that's something NASCAR needs to bring back. We used to do that for Daytona. Indy's doing it for the 500. Just pointing that out.
all we do is tire test now. That's all we do.
Yeah, which gives certain teams advantages
Yep.
over others. I mean, it ain't. Anyway, if the teams are willing to spend the money, let them spend the money at this point.
Mhm.
If it'll make something better. But he's running that. He's got two. He's running sprint car race Friday night, practice qualify Saturday, running the sprint car race Saturday night at the dirt track at Texas, and then the Cup race Sunday. So he's getting back in his full swing where he don't stop, and everybody starts talking about him risking the NASCAR stuff. But I truly think if you took it away from him, he wouldn't be the same.
No, and I think Kyle's a guy that I think he loves anything he gets in, but I really think that NASCAR pays his bills and dirt racing is really his passion. Not that he doesn't love NASCAR stock cars, but that's just the impression I get from him.
Well, I think the thing is compared to what it was when he first started, we still had a ton of horsepower. It was harder to drive. I just think that it upsets him that the drivers don't show their ability as much
Yeah.
with this current car. But anyway, moving on to the finishing results. Obviously, it was a huge day for Hendrick celebrating their 40th anniversary. Byron first, Larson second, Chase Elliott third, back-to-back top fives for Elliott. You may have been right. He's done got on the streak. He start 2 weeks. That's starting to show a pattern.
Keep on
I get,
reading. Keep on reading there. Who finished
you talking
sixth?
about that 22 car?
Who finished sixth? That's what I want to know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't recognize that name. That must be a misprint. I think that's your two-time champion, Mr. Logano, down there that you was talking about.
Hey, fifth most points. You got to give a shout out to Bubba. He had another solid race again. Blaney, he made sugar out of you know what because he was not having a good day at all. Really came on in those last 85 laps. Your top six. Very impressed by Tyler Reddick too, man.
Mm-hmm.
Throwing he finished seventh, top 10 at a short track. That's not his forte at all.
I agree. I'll tell you another shot. You all brought up Bubba. He finished second in both stages Sunday.
Yep.
He had a really. This is 2 weeks in a row to where they ran like that, and they just didn't finish it off at Richmond. So that's super impressive. And Stuart Haas had 2 cars in the top 10. As rumors are spreading more and more rampant about selling charters, losing their connection with Ford. Who knows what's going to happen with them? But
there's a very trustworthy source on the street that says they could be going to Honda. So I'm just putting that in the universe. You do that with what you will. The only thing I'll add there before we continue through our finishes is that Honda has not had any rumors of them building a next-gen car. So that would make me think that Stuart Haas would not be going to Honda until 2026. But there's an issue with that would be that their contract with Ford ends after this year. So I definitely don't think they're going to be back at Ford. But can Honda really speed up the process and get them in there as early as next year? Or do they go to Chevrolet for a holdover? Or do they just go to one of the other 2 manufacturers in general and just sign a long-term contract with them. So that's the really interesting thing right now. And I do think it'll only be a two-car team. I think Chase Briscoe, man, he's really proven that he can outdrive that equipment, and he's doing it on a weekly basis. They give him a 20-place car, he finishes 15th. They give him a 15-place car, he finishes top 10. They give him a top 10 car, he's going to compete for the win. He just has been in really bad equipment, and I think that he's a really good race car driver. And I would hate to see him leave Ford as a Ford fan, but I think he's the franchise guy. Him and Noah over there right now are the guys that you want, in my opinion.
Yeah, you have to keep Noah at this point to me. Ryan, as much as I like Ryan Priest in his story, he hasn't really shown much. And then you brought up the whole maybe leaving Ford thing. They could stay at Ford for 1 year because if they're that would explain the whole rumor of them selling charters to basically have the money to make up for the fact that they ain't getting the money from Ford next year.
Right.
And if they're wanting to go with a new manufacturer, that it's just too late in the game for it to happen next year. So we'll just have to wait and see on that. But I would go with, if you keep the two drivers that are there, it would have to be Chase and Noah, in my opinion, because Noah showed up too much potential. And he's still really, if you look at it, he's still technically a rookie as far as the stars. He's less than a full season in. And he shows these flashes of really good things.
And Josh is a good race car driver, don't get me wrong. It's just Josh is such a wild card, I think, in that if you sell those two charters, it also comes down to, if you sold him to Dale Jr., he's going to want his two guys, in Noah and Josh. So, you don't really know what's going to happen. I think it is going to be, for me, it's one of the most anticipated silly seasons as we get into the summer months than maybe in the past 5 to 10 years. Really since 2012, when you had the domino effect of Dodge left the sport, and then Matt Kenseth left Roush, and then Joey went and got in the 22 car, and there was just a domino effect of things that kind of happened. That's how I think this silly season is going to be comparative to. You got all this young talent blooming in the Xfinity and the Truck Series. You got manufacturer deals ending. It's just going to be very exciting, in my opinion, once we get to June, July, August, and forward from there.
Yeah, and it does seem like you said the junior motorsports rumors are starting to get a little stronger. And also, I think it was on Door Bumper Clear, they were talking about that the charter price, for whatever reason, have actually went down some.
Really?
From what they expect them to be. So it was either Door Bumper Clear, or I think it was Door Bumper Clear, said that the expected rate of them charters are less than what they were last year because they still don't have a deal done to figure out what they're going to get out of this new TV deal. They announced a new TV deal, but they still haven't decided what the team's going to get out of it. So that's making them charters value kind of dip.
Well, it should be. It should be. It should drive the price of everything down, because you should be bringing in more money because you have all these different networks dispersed out. So, in my opinion, you go to what is it, 4 different networks between Fox, Turner, Amazon, and NBC. So, yeah. And the CW and the Xfinity series is going to bring in money because they're doing all 36 races, right? I know that doesn't affect the Cup as much, but a lot of these teams have Cup and Xfinity teams jointly in the same building. So you would think that it would bring in more money, and I would like to think that's why NASCAR is doing it. So, yeah, to drive down that price of the charters would be huge. Because you hear Dale Jr. say that he can't afford a charter. It's like, Dale, maybe you don't want to pay that, but we all know that you can afford the price of a charter.
Now, there's a big difference between you can and won't. But they say he's always been tight. But, if you're going to have money, you got to know how to save it and not blow it. And he don't blow his money.
He doesn't. And he's built an empire, too.
Mm-hmm. No doubt. And let's just go on down the line here. Eric Jones had a solid finish compared to what they've been doing, 12th. Still not quite what I honestly expected for them to do. Denny Hamlin finishes 11th. And here's the prime example of almost 100 lap tires, and you pass one car in 2 laps compared to everybody else not pitting. That's a problem. And that's all I'm going to say about it. That's proof in the pudding right there with Hamlin. Because the race in 2012 where Jeff and Jimmy were battling for the 200th win for Rick, they stayed out, and they were like they were sitting still behind them with Boyer and Newman. That one leading to the wreck, the first of the incidents that led to what happened in Phoenix later that year, really. But that's what should have happened with Hamlin. He should have been running over people. He should have been so much faster, and he just wasn't. But anyway, and you go down here, the same guys, man, that really Austin Cindric up and down 23rd. Brad, by far the worst he's looked this year. They struggled for some reason on Sunday. And then at this point, you hate to keep beating a dead horse. Austin Dillon, changing crew chief. I'm trying to be nice. He's right above Austin on this list. But Austin, 35th. I think they did say that he had a power steering pump go out at some point. But, man, it's just not good. Harrison Burton.
Where do you run? Where do you run, JP? Where do you run?
You don't want to know.
No, I'm looking at it right here on my iPad. I know where you're at.
Oh, okay. 33rd. Yep. He improved one spot throughout the day from where he qualified.
Just wonderful, man. Tell you what.
I mean, it
really gets you exciting when that 21 car pulls onto the track. It really gets you excited, man. It's like I know that guy's got a chance to win today. And when he runs 33rd every week, it's like, man, I know he's got a chance next week. That's what makes me happy. And then he runs 33rd again the next week. So
I don't know. He may have a chance in 2 weeks. That's probably about it. If he can get lucky.
All jokes aside, I'm not going to get ahead of ourselves. But his only serious chance of winning in the Cup Series came 2 years ago at the Fall Texas race. So, it's the only time he's ever showed race-winning speed, and then his car caught on fire on pit road. And I'm not laughing because his car caught on fire. It's just like the series of unfortunate events that unfolded. He showed that he had a top 5 car and was going to run towards the front in that race, makes a green flag pit stop. They take the tire off, and it just kept caught on fire. I guess because of built-up rubber or whatever. And that is the only time, again, outside of restrictor plate tracks, that he has shown race-winning speed. And that was disheartening.
Yeah, I remember that race, and that ain't surprising because he was really good there in the Xfinity Series. It was always one of the strongest tracks. But man, I hope they turn it around. Surely the Wood brothers aren't that far off coming out of the Penske shop.
No,
I mean, Penske isn't great right now. I mean, they're good, and Joey's showing definitely a tick forward. They can't be that bad off, I wouldn't think. And there's no way. They haven't ran that bad, honestly, since Trevor Bayne, other than that Trevor had some rough times in that car when they was running a part-time schedule.
When you look at the talent that you had in it since Trevor, you had Ryan Blaney. You had Paul Menard. Again, I know Paul wasn't anything special, but Paul was consistent. You knew what you were going to get out of Paul Menard.
He was a lot better than this.
Right. And then you had Matty D. Matty D took that team to the playoffs. And then now, and again, I know we bring it up every single week. It's just like at some point this has to turn around. For the 2 and the 21, they're coming out of the same building. Been very, very subpar. And the 12 and the 20, I think it's one of those things where the 2 and the 21 are running extremely subpar, and then the 12 and the 22 are running extremely over what they should be. And I think that's just a product of 2 champions versus 2 guys that maybe don't deserve a ride in the Cup Series, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's looking like, in my opinion, Cindric might be headed toward the Cole Custer route.
Yep.
If they want to keep him that, Penske's going to fire the Xfinity team back up. That, or he may go drive for somebody else.
Well, he's going to have a job.
Yeah.
Just like Cole's got a job at Stewart-Haas because of who his father is. Both Austins in the Cup Series, Dillon and Cindric, they're both going to have jobs. So if you didn't know, Austin's dad is one of the I think he's a president at Team Penske. So
yeah. But moving on, I guess we're going to look at points now, unless there's anybody else notable in the order you want to talk about. Larson regained the points lead over Truex. They just keep flipping it every other week between the 2 of them. Then you got Hamlin right behind them. Byron's up to 4th, who's now got 3 wins, but he's had a lot of really bad finishes at the same time. But most of them have honestly not been his fault. I mean, he looked like he had like an 8-gallon garbage bag on his car at Las Vegas that set him behind, and just some misfortune at the others. Ryan Blaney's still holding there in 5th, just being ultra consistent. Chase has moved up some at the 6th. You got Ty in the 7th, Chastain 8th, Reddick 9th, and Bowman is in 10th right now. You look at some issues, though. right now, because it's getting to that point now to where you're starting to look at the guys that can win. I know Logano and Blaney, they have that speed where they could pop off and win anywhere, really. Brad and Busher, I believe, could pop off and win at mile and a half. But as of right now, the proof is you're going to have to go through Gibbs or Hendrick because they have won every race this year, except for Atlanta, which is not your typical bread and butter cup track with the draft.
Yeah, but even then, Trackhouse gets help from Hendrick. So,
yeah.
I mean, even then, right? I mean, pretty much it's been a Hendrick or a Toyota TRD engine that has won the race, won at the Cup Series level this year. Ford has not won a NASCAR race at all, actually, this year across any of the 3 series. So,
you Ford, y'all brag too much about November in Phoenix.
Hey, man, I'll take a championship trophy over a win any day. This happened 2018 too, and we know who won the championship. So,
yeah. Everybody.
Hey, actually, you talked about that the other day. You went to Talladega, and somebody broke their winless streak at Talladega, and they went on to win a championship that year. Again, his name seems to leave my mind.
The guy that never throws blocks at Daytona and Talladega.
He doesn't throw blocks. I don't know what he's talking about. Joe Logano? Throw blocks?
Yeah.
Really? Never seen that. Except for the 15-minute compilation they put together on YouTube. Besides that, I've never seen it.
With 5 blocks per minute.
God bless him. And then he complains about other people throwing blocks. Julia, got to stop that.
Yeah. But what I was getting at, you're seeing the guys that are winning. Some of these other guys have got to get some speed and figure out how to finish races. Because it's getting deep enough in the season now where you could dig yourself into too big of a hole points-wise. But Keselowski this week, that hurt him. He fell out of the top 16. You got Suarez. He's out, but he's got the win, but he's 17th in the points.
Yep.
18th in the points, my bad. And that is just not good. Briscoe.
No, you're correct. You're correct. He is 17th in the points.
Okay. My bad. Chase is 1 point out. Briscoe.
You're looking at the playoff points. He is 16th in the overall points, though. So.
Yeah. And then, I'm looking at the playoff behind. Then you got Kyle Busch, who has been this downfall. He's 1 point above the cutoff right now. I mean, you have a couple more bad races, you could get in a position where you have to win. And right now, even though Kyle Busch is a driver, we all know could win the next 5 on talent. We all know that. That car is not there right now. The team, and when they do have a fast car, they lose 10 spots on pit road each time. They've got some work to do. And that team, man, at the beginning of last year, they looked so good on pit road on the track. And after they won at WWT, it has just went downhill.
What about Christopher Bale, man? He's really went downhill the past couple of weeks. He lost 5 spots this week after that rough week he had. He's another guy, again, I'm not pressing the emergency button by any means, but it's just like, whoa.
There's a lot of issues. Like, the reason they had such a bad day is because they left the lug loose. They got lucky that it looked like he had broke a tie rod in on TV because it somehow wedged itself in the fender. Well, there's a lot of crew members over the last couple of years that wish they got that lucky.
Mm-hmm.
But it looked like he broke a tie rod in, but they went back and found that it had the lug had came off and it just pinned in there. They've just had a bunch of bad luck. Also, Toyota in general, man, it's the 2311 cars, the 20, the 19 have all had issues on pit road. And one thing I did not realize that we were talking about Rich, if I was Truex, I think he has a right to complain some. He lost a race last week to his old pit crew that they gave Denny during the playoffs last year after he got eliminated, and they let Denny keep him. And they are the best on pit road this year. And they lost. That's got to bother you just a little bit if you're – it would me. Like, you got to be kidding me. It was supposed to be a loan for the playoffs. You're supposed to give them back. But I guess that's the thing. Denny's been there the longest, so they let him have the better pit crew. Possibly. I don't know how that works, but –
I don't either.
But Gibbs right now, even though Ty hasn't won a race, and Ty struggled a little bit. Overall, besides Denny, the Toyotas surprisingly struggled compared to what they've done in the previous races with this new short track package that obviously hasn't fixed the short track racing, but they've been good with it.
Yeah, Ty was just lucky. Ahead. He was just lucky to finish 15th, man. I mean, he ran really 18th to 22nd all day, and then he ran that last green flag run long, and then just made up a couple spots on that final restart. He did for what he's been doing this year. Like if this was early on last year, it'd be good for them, but it was a bad day for him. But that's also a compliment to how well that they've ran this year.
Yeah. Well, it's just one of them things. You're not going to run up front every single week. And people forget he still is only in his second
21.
year. And at one of the hardest tracks for a young driver to get the hang of most
He's
of the time.
20. Is he? Yeah, he's what, 20? Yeah, 21 years old. So,
But you look at Truex didn't run good. Bale wasn't running great before he had the issue, even though he had some bad luck. He was probably running the mid-teens. Hamlin was only Toyota. Well, other than Bubba, Bubba ran up front all day. But compared to what they've been doing at Phoenix, Bristol, and then at Richmond, you'd have thought they'd have been more effective there.
well, it's just funny that the 11, the 23, and the 45 kind of had it dialed in there for Toyota. It's like Denny did something.
Did somebody go get the boss man a setup Saturday night? Is that weird?
I don't know. Denny knew something and shared it with his two cars. That obviously his three teammates at JGR did not know. That's as it seemed anyway.
I know, it might be the other way around, considering it might have been them two going to Denny.
Yeah, right.
I'll tell you one thing about Bubba: you couldn't lose a pole by much closer than what he did to Larson the other day. That was a close pole run.
Yeah.
So I guess we need to move on to Texas. I guess I'll go first. It's going to come down. I want to say RFK will be a threat, but they've lost just a touch of what they had the second half of last year. And I think it's just them trying to figure out the new nose on this new Mustang.
That's every Ford, I think.
Yeah. But I'll go ahead and give my Ford pick to Busher just because of how strong he was at them style of tracks last year. I'm not picking him to win. Then I'll give my Toyota pick to Bubba. Finished third in the fall. Had a chance to win. Didn't finish it off in the last restart. Chevrolet and the win. I'm going to go with Larson. I don't pick him that often, but he's the defending winner of this race. He won the All-Star race. He's won 2 points races since he's been with Hendrick plus the All-Star race there. If he wouldn't have made a mistake trying to pass Bubba last fall, he probably would have won that race. He dominated that race. And that's been their strong suit. It's always been his strong suit in Mount Hassan, and that team has been lightning fast. They won Vegas. By far had the best car for 35, 40 laps, and I just don't think you'll see it much different. A lot of people look at Larson this past week, even though he won third place, I'm ecstatic with. Because at one point, as a Larson fan, you was happy if he ran in the top 15 at that place.
Right.
It's not his best place. I mean, so going back the next week, I just think he's going to show up this week. But if it ain't him, it's going to be a Hendrick car or a Gibbs car in my feeling. Yeah. I just got a gut feeling. Nobody's proven it yet that they can go up there and beat them. Now, you never know. There could be a late caution that wrinkles the field up and lets somebody else win. If it's just pure speed right now, I don't think nobody beats them two teams.
Well, I disagree. I am going to pick for Chevrolet. As much as I'd like to agree with you for the sake of the podcast, I do think Kyle will run well on Sunday. I am going to go with Mr. William Byron. I think it's gotten to that point in the year where Rudy has it absolutely locked in right now. So, unfortunately, and I say unfortunately, meaning that quite a lot, I am going to go with William Byron. For Toyota, that's a tough one for me. I think that, as much as I want to pick Ty, and Ty's good on the mile and a halves, I'm feeling really strongly picking C-Bale. Just think it's a bounce back week for him. That team always responds well after they've faced some adversity in the previous couple of weeks. They've showed in the playoffs the last 2 years. So I think C-Bale is going to run well. I think the winless streak is finally over for one Ford champion on Sunday. Now, you might be thinking, who could that champion be? Well, it could be one of two guys. It really could be one of three guys. But two guys have extremely long winless streaks. And I think it is going to be Mr. Joey Logano, who is going to take home the checkered flag on Sunday. He's always been strong at Texas. He always runs well on the mile and a halves, but especially at Texas, there was a point in time where you could pin him in for a top 5 every time he went to Texas. So, and he's running the AAA car, which usually always creates good mojo too. I don't know. I'm feeling good about that 22 on Sunday. I really am.
You never can go wrong. We know Joey's good enough to win. It's just a matter if they bring him a good enough car to put in that top
Yep.
3 or 4, and that's just what it comes down there when it comes down to when it comes to him.
And you know what? The mile and a halves have been a lot different than other places in years past, whereas speed kind of reigned supreme. Like they didn't bring a lot of speed when it came to Phoenix, Richmond, Coda, or Martinsville. But you go back, they brought a lot of speed forward as a whole to Daytona and to Atlanta. And I think that, Texas is a pretty comparable place. Even with Atlanta becoming a drafting track now, I think it still is a pretty comparable place to Texas. So I think Ford will be stronger again. Am I going to be surprised if an HMS car or a Gibbs car wins? No, absolutely not. I mean, obviously, as you said, they're the favorites, but Ford has been able to bring good cars to these bigger tracks, meaning the mile and a half and bigger. Obviously, Las Vegas, they still brought good speed. They still kind of lagged just a hair. But once you get to those mile and a halves, Ford has been really, really good. That has been their bread and butter. I mean, Blaney dominated the 600. That was their, first win last year, and it took them all the way to the 600. So, I don't know. I feel good about Joey, man. He's on a hot streak right now. Him and Paul got something figured out. I really think he wins it on Sunday. I truly believe it.
Well, only time will tell. And I feel more confident in them than I did a couple weeks ago. We'll wait and see. And it'd be good. We need Ford to get involved in the show and not just have teams dominate it the whole year.
Yeah,
I'm not a Ford fan.
And that's not going to happen, though. That's not going to happen. This happens. This happens every year. I mean, it does. One team, even if Team Penske started out on fire, man, where the 12 and the 22 were just trading wins, and then the 17 and the 6 were running well, and you're like, man, something about those Roush Yates engines. It's like, I'm not going to feel good about that because HMS has dominated to start each of the last, now 3 years, and they haven't won a championship. And it's just like, when you start out well, somebody else, and this happens every single year, no matter who starts out on the hot streak, you start out well, you're probably not going to end well. Again, more than likely. I'm not saying that that's how it is. I'm saying that's how the trends have been told. So Ford's going to come along at some point. It's just like you said. I hope that it's sooner rather than later, I guess is really what I'm saying.
No, I agree with you. I think we got some solid picks. I like my Ford pick if the Ford show up with speed, because Buescher could win at any point in time. He proved that last year, and that would be a big win for him, being his home track too.
Yep.
If it was to be him. But I guess moving on, is there anything else you want to cover about the Cup Series? Well, I guess
I'm excited. I'm excited. All 3 series are back. I think the truck race will be exciting. And I'm excited to see SVG. I know we bring him up a lot, but I'm excited to see SVG and Jesse Love and a lot of those other guys who are making their first start at Texas this weekend in the Xfinity Series. That is going to be fun to watch just because Texas is such an isolated track from your other cookie cutter mile and a halves. It's going to be interesting to watch all 3 series this weekend. And we got something to watch Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So I'm excited to have all 3 series this weekend too.
Yeah, it's always fun when you have all 3 series there. And the trucks usually put on a decent race at Texas, better than the Cup Series to me. But I guess looking forward, it's going to be a good weekend of racing, like I said, with all 3 series. Hopefully the truck guys race clean. That's the only problem they usually have. Sometimes they truck Friday night at Martinsville. That's the only way I know how to put it. They went trucking. That's the only way you can say it. The first half of the race was clean, and then the second half was they just ran over everybody.
Everybody ran up.
Yeah. I will give this. The Xfinity Series drivers did a whole lot better than the last fall race. They had one big wreck, but it was just because of a misshift. It wasn't because of dirty driving and stuff like that. But I guess moving on, last thing we need to touch on, do a little preview and review, I guess, of CFR from this past week.
Well, it's not a whole lot to review.
Now, Steve Fan whooped us again, if you've been following. Happy was the only one that stayed in the zip code. But really, he was a zip code and a half away.
Yeah, because C-Fan won all 3 stages, right?
Well, yeah, but Dark Knight was competitive with him. he called him a couple times. He just was where C-Fan just is like a robot, it seems like, at some of these places. Dark Knight made a couple mistakes here and there that made him lose some time, but he was fast, really fast. I mean, if you watch my stream, because Brett unfortunately had some work things come up, it wasn't good. I don't blame you if you didn't watch much of it because I wasn't very competitive. We'll get back to turning left this week. I promise it'll be better. But unless something happens, I think you should be back this weekend, shouldn't you?
Yep. We'll be there. We will be there Saturday night at Richmond. It'll be fun, I think. Going into the second week of the round of 9. Happy said it was actually a misprint originally. It was a round of 12. Then you go on a round of 9 this week. So I think it'll be a good race. I think it's a wild card race, man. Just kind of like how Bristol was, because Richmond's a track, man. It doesn't matter how good or how automatic you are, especially on Heat 5, dude. You could really miss something, and you mess up one corner, dude. That could ruin your stage, or if not your race. So I think this will be one to really lock into. It's going to be a big week for you, obviously, as well, points-wise. So still got that 5th place finish to fall back on from last week, but I think this is a big one for everybody coming up Saturday.
It really is, and then especially for Dunlap, who they had some storms in his area last week, so it knocked the Wi-Fi out. He couldn't run, so he's sitting there 39 points behind Jay White. But we're knocking 3 out to be the top 6 after this.
Yep.
Jay White's in 6th with 2,039 points, and you got Dunlap, Nesta, and Real Smooth all at 2,000. So they're 39 points behind. They got to have a good race. And I really need to have a good race to build some cushion, because I may not be racing next week. You may just be seeing one part of the Checkered Pass and the present crew at Homestead. So I may be. It depends if I can get back to the hotel in time for the Xfinity race. But I need to have a good points night Saturday to give me some room.
You might not be racing there in the 600 weekend either. I don't. Just putting that out there.
We'll have to see. The boss lady's in the house. I don't know if she can hear us, but we'll see if any of the guys comment again. I know Happy commented about it last week.
Listen, all jokes aside, I would be looking forward to 600 if I was a fan, just because, like I'm saying, even if I wasn't going, because if you look at the races, Texas has not provided good racing for us. Talladega's Talladega, right? Like, it's such a wild card. Dover is, again, a wild card on the next gen. I feel like some races we had have been awesome, and then other ones have been the Martin Truex Showcase. And then we have the month of May, which is the best calendar racing month, I think, for the Cup Series schedule. We go to Kansas, which I think has provided, a top 3, top 2 next gen race. Then you go to Darlington. Darlington has been wonderful on the next gen. Then you have the All-Star race. Wild card, though. But it's just the fact of it's an All-Star race. It's at North Wilkesboro. It's still sick. Hopefully they throw a wrench into things and put 1,000 horsepower in the car because it's an All-Star race. And then we have the 600. So I'm excited, obviously, because I'm getting to go to the 600. But I'm really excited because that caps off, in my opinion, the best calendar month of racing in all the Cup Series schedules. So we really just got to make it through the next 3 weeks. Even though I am excited to watch Talladega and Dover. I mean, I watch them every week. It doesn't. They could be, they could be running on a road course that never ends and it's just one lap. But I'm going to watch them no matter where they go. But it's just, I'm really looking forward to that month of May. But yeah, I still think to finish out this month, it's going to get better than what we had with Richmond and Martinsville. I think that Texas hopefully can improve because Marcus Smith has caught enough slack from the drivers, from the owners, from
especially
the fan base.
One.
Yeah, the driver of that 11 car. I don't know if you guys saw that this week. I wanted to bring that up. I'm glad we did, but it was rather interesting. I'm sure you could find the screenshots of it somewhere. I have it on my phone, but they were going at each other. So Marcus has caught enough slack from everybody that hopefully Texas has improved. I don't know, man. I mean, I didn't like that with Denny and Marcus. That's something good to end the podcast with. I think that's really good that we touch on that and we end the podcast with that because it's a negative note that we can turn into a positive. Here's what I'll say, and I'll finish with this. Marcus Smith, along with Dale Jr., along with Ray Evernham, are the 3 most influential figures in the sport right now that are not directly correlated with NASCAR. And what I mean by that is those three guys are trying to take us back to what NASCAR is supposed to be combined with what NASCAR is today. They're trying to bring the very best out of the sport because NASCAR has made such strides into the 21st century, but we've lost a little bit of what we had in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. Those three gentlemen are trying to bring it back. And what Marcus has done for the fan experience, what Dale Jr. is doing for the short track, and what Ray is doing in general with the short track stuff as well is phenomenal. And for Denny, as much as I like Denny, for Denny to go at him like that and to take a shot, and when I say as much as I like Denny, I mean what he does for the sport off the track and as a voice has nothing to do with his on track stuff. I didn't like that. I thought that was a poor usage of Denny's platform, and I thought that was not a good look for Marcus to go back at him either. But I do think that they brought in eyes on social media, obviously, for good or bad reasons. But I just think that Marcus has done so much for the sport and continues to do so much for the sport. Obviously, his father did a lot as well. And I just think that's not a good look to be going at a guy who is trying to improve the sport and get it back to the top of its brand like it was in the early 2000s. Because I'm definitely thankful for what Marcus Smith has done because I've went to about every track he owns, it seems like, and I've never had a bad experience at any of them. So
I've only been to 2 of their tracks for NASCAR races, and it was a great experience. Denny does a lot for the sport too, and I truly believe he cares about the sport. But man, that was an odd thing to wake up to Friday morning. It was Thursday night when that happened, right?
yeah, I was still awake. I think I sent it to you, and you were already asleep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a crazy thing to wake up to, but I couldn't help but want to read it. It was kind of like, well, man, it's over when you got to the end of the thread. But I saw somebody almost wonder. There's people contemplating on it, including the guys in Dorm Bumper Clear. They both want to grow the sport so much. Did they rig this and do it to make people their
That's what
eyes
my
on it?
dad. That was my dad's hypothesis. I don't know.
Or did Denny do it just to get people to quit talking about the restart at Richmond to talk about something else at least? I don't know. Who knows?
There's some good theories.
The only thing I will say about it, that asphalt did look thin.
Yeah.
That's Sonoma that started this whole. For those of you who don't know, it all started over the repave job at Sonoma coming up, going into turn 11, right in the braking zone. And the picture that they put on there, it did look real thin. So I'll give them that. But all I can say is if something happens to that asphalt at North Wilkesboro, Denny Hamlin's going to come off as a genius.
Yes. Yes. I would give you that.
I kind of hope one chunk comes up.
Well, and to be fair to Denny, Denny's probably taking it as a different outlook as we are at it because he's looking at it as a driver. Mm-hmm. We obviously are going to look at it as fans and consumers of the sport. So, yeah, if I'm a driver and I see that, I'm probably going to be mad because I don't want to be racing somewhere. And what was it, the 2012 Daytona, 2011? I forget which one it was.
And it was the one that Murray won.
Yeah, it was 2010 then. It was 10.
Yeah.
Where asphalt just started coming up and we had like 2 or 3 red flags. You had it that time at Martinsville where Jeff ran over it. And, yeah, I know. So
I may have been like 8, but it still hurts.
You don't want those instances reoccurring. So, no, I get Denny's perspective. It's just Marcus does a lot, and I don't think it's a lack of trying or a lack of effort or a lack of funds why this is happening, in my opinion. But, again, you got to give Denny his credit. Denny knows a lot more than I do when it comes to that. So
I agree with that. I have a hard time believing that Marcus is – because look at the money he put into North Wilkesboro. He didn't have to do that.
No.
And he just repaid.
Still put money into it.
Yeah, I mean, redoing some of the stands right now. I mean, it's just – Marcus, I think, truly likes the sport now. Denny took some shots saying that he didn't earn nothing. That ain't the first time Denny's took a shot at somebody or saying they didn't earn it, including a dude that drives that yellow car now, even though they used to be teammates. But he likes to take shots, man. But you know what's bad? As much as we sit here and say that was dumb, that kind of stuff is what makes this sport great at the same time.
Yeah.
The bickering and the argument. Now, most of the time it ain't between a track promoter and a driver at almost midnight on Twitter or X, whatever it is. But I'll let that go. Either way, we got controversy. And we had a lot of it last week. There was plenty to talk about. This week has been kind of quiet because all it is just people upset with NASCAR. But
you always think when there's going to be controversy, there's not. Whether it is an event that happens on the track you think is going to happen, or whether you you go to a track like Martinsville and you're like, man, we're going to see a fight today. But then you go to places like Texas, like Kansas, like, other places on the circuit where you're like, oh, guys will get spread out and they won't race each other. And then they get out of the cars and Ross Chastain puts somebody in the mouth. So, that's why you got to watch every single week. And I'm with you.
Mm-hmm.
Controversy grows the sport. So maybe it was a good thing overall. I just felt like it was noteworthy to talk about and give our opinions
Yeah.
on. So, but
Well, me too.
hopefully Texas will provide some good racing. One of Marcus's tracks on Sunday and this weekend in general. I really hope it'll provide three really good products. So
I hope so too. The last thing on that, I do feel they got too personal though with it. That's my
yes,
main thing with it. They just got too personal. But I think we will see some good racing on Friday and Saturday for sure. Sunday, the Cup Series, it was better, it seemed like to me last fall. The next gen just overall helped mile and a half. So I don't, as much as it did everything else, it helped the mile and a half for sure. The good mile and a half are even that much better. It made Texas, who I thought was on the verge of possibly losing a date period if it wasn't for the market that was in because of the racing improve. And interesting to say, this is the first time that we've had the spring date since the next gen. So we'll see how that goes. But guys, I guess that's gonna be it for today. Um, if you have a local short track, like we always say, support it. Without the local short tracks, you ain't gonna have these guys getting to the Cup Series, and some people fail to realize that for some reason. They act like these guys just wake up, they're 19 years old, boom, and Daytona in a Cup car. That's not how it works. But we'll see you guys Saturday night live from virtual Richmond, I guess. Y'all have a good weekend. We'll see you then.